All right, hey everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel here. Today we are going to be doing some prep on my big Super Bowl cook that I'm going to be doing in the next couple days. Today I'm going to be cooking chicken, which I've got sitting right over there on some pans. And I'm also getting my ribs prepped. As soon as I get these ribs prepped, we're going to light the fire, get the smoker getting going, let the rubs and everything sit on the ribs. And the chickens are already sitting, so we're going to get those on the fire probably in about an hour. What I want to do though is I want to go through the process of what it takes to prep a slab of spare ribs. You could use the same process on baby back ribs, though spare ribs are shaped a little differently. This is what we typically use for KCBS competitions. And I kind of took the methods I learned from doing competition cooking and incorporated them into the home. So I've already opened these out of the ribs. You can see I got quite a few racks here. I got a couple of these already done. But this is when you buy a whole slab of pork ribs, pork spare ribs, you're going to get this whole big old thing. Now, before I understood really how to smoke, I would cook the whole thing just like this. I'd cook up here the brisket bone along with everything else, and this stuff up here, this meat that's up here, you can cook that and you can eat it if you want to. But it's not the greatest meat. It's best to kind of just pitch that, or if you want to, you can incorporate it into, you can grind it up, make pork sausage out of it, something like that. I typically just cast it off though. I don't have a lot of use for it myself. So a couple things you want to do. You want to kind of look at the ribs here. As you can see here, this shiny part right here, this is the back strap that's on the back side of the ribs. We're going to pull this off. And that's something very critical that you have to do each time. And also there's like this meat flap here. As you can see, we're going to cut this off, and then we're also going to trim that brisket bone off as well, and just kind of shape everything up to make it look like a rectangle. So the first thing we're going to do is come in here, find that meat flap, just take your knife, just work alongside the base of the bones, and just take this off. And again, if you want to incorporate this into something, if you're creative and you want to use this meat flap for something, go right ahead. But I mean, there's a lot of fat, a lot of grizzle, a lot of stuff. I just pitched that. Plus we got a little misshapen part down here. We're gonna cut that off. Next thing we're gonna do, go ahead and get a paper towel. You want something, the reason why I use a paper towel here is because we need to be able to grip this back strap, this silver skin, and pull it off. Now, if you're lucky, you'll be able to pull it off in one pull. If you're unlucky, which I've been unlucky on the first two racks I've already done today, it'll take you a couple different pulls. So you just get your paper towel, just kind of use your thumb and kind of push up on the silver skin, and then with your paper towel, grab a hold of it and just kind of work it back. This one actually is going to be, I think this one's going to go pretty well. Oh, I spoke too soon. Let's see if I can get the rest of that. Kind of readjust my paper towel so I can keep a grip on it. And you just kind of want to pull it off. So I didn't get all of it here. There's a little bit down here that I didn't get. And sometimes it can be a little tricky. If you leave this on, there we go. If you leave this on, and it's perfectly fine. There are some people that do leave it on. The problem though, if you leave the back strap on, when you bite into the rib when it's done, you're gonna have this backstrap. This backstrap will not render down when you cook, and so when you bite on it, there's that film that you're gonna bite, and your teeth are gonna pull the meat off that film, and it's really grisly, and it's just not. You don't want to be eating it. It just doesn't have any taste. It's just chewy, and it really affects the texture of the rib. If you go to like a restaurant that's not a barbecue restaurant, but they have ribs, they're probably not pulling the backstrap off, and you've probably eaten a lot of ribs without the backstrap, or with the backstrap on. So kind of also right here, I'm just kind of there's some big fat chunks here. I'm just kind of pulling off the backside. We'll clean up the rest of this here in a second. What I also like to do is I like to take my knife, and where the bones are, I like to score. Just make one little score mark on each of the bones. And what that does is that even though we got that back strap off, there's still a membrane here. And what this helps that membrane break down. There's also things that you can put when you wrap your ribs, like about halfway during the cook. there's things that you can put into the wrap, like apple juice or pineapple juice, that have an enzyme in them that will help break those connective tissue down even more. I used to use pineapple juice all the time. I don't anymore because I think, almost in my opinion, it breaks down too much. If you want your ribs fall off the bone tender, go ahead and do that. But if you want your ribs to have some texture and some bite and to hold together but still be perfectly tender, don't put pineapple juice in it. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to find where our top of our ribs are. So you just kind of take your hands, take your fingers, and just kind of feel where the top of the bone is. It can be a little deceiving because this right here is not the top of the rib bone. So I'm feeling here, looks like the top is right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my knife right here at the top. And I'm going to go straight across. I had to go a little cattywampus there, but go straight across like that. So this isn't perfectly square, but it's close enough. This is what I was talking about. You can do something with this if you want. Chop it up. There's quite a bit of meat on here if you want to cook it like that, but but there's a lot of fat in between the layers of meat. For this cook, I don't have time to mess with it. Next thing we want to do, once we got this, so we're kind of getting it perfectly squared up here. You want to kind of make sure everything is unwrapped and unfolded. There's a layer of meat down here. This is good meat to eat. The problem is when you smoke, this is gonna, since there's no bones here, this is just gonna shrivel up and get charred. So I cut that off as well. Flip it over, kind of inspect the other side here. There's a lot of fat, a lot of connective tissue here. I'm gonna just kind of pretty this up a little bit. Not too worried about some of this fat, but I'm gonna take a little bit of it off. Some of that's a little excess than what you need. Overall, it's not terrible. That's good enough. We still got, this is pretty thick in here, so these are going to be some meaty ribs. So that's pretty much what you want to do. If there's anything that's like hanging off or whatever, just kind of inspect it and take anything off of it that you think doesn't belong. I mean, the rest of this looks fine. I mean, some people will get really particular and they'll come in and they'll clean up some of this extra fat junk here. This is all these little pieces of fat, that's all going to render out in the cooking process. So the rest of this is I'm going to leave it like this. Some of these down here will be not much meat on them, but this is kind of what your finished product's going to look like. Okay. Really, if you want to look at some of these other ones I did already, kind of see, this is what they call a St. Louis cut. Okay, when you take the whole spare rib rack, square it up like almost in a rectangle shape. This is, so whenever you hear someone say St. Louis style ribs, it's not a cooking method, it's a trimming method. And I have 10 racks of ribs here, and we're going to do that for all 10 racks. So I got 3 racks done, I got 7 racks to go. So we're going to come back at it with another video. Once I get all these trimmed up, we're going to come back and I'm going to show you my method for how to rub, put the rub on, and get them prepped that way. So just stick around and we'll be right back.